Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. The Magical Learning Podcast is a podcast that takes serious topics in business and life and then presents them in a fun and lighthearted way, so it's not so boring. This week, we're talking about pivoting in business. You know, heading into the 2020s, all businesses have to pivot, it seems like. With the advent of AI and new technology and new working systems and cultures, it's important to be able to pivot. So, how do you pivot? What are some great examples of pivoting? And how can you pivot better? Well, all of those are answered in today's awesome and funny conversation. As always, I hope you enjoy this one. And again, as always, have a magical week. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. It's a team podcast, so it's just the regular team. We're going to be catching up about an exciting topic, and we'll get to that very shortly. We'll pivot to that shortly, actually, I should say, a little bit of leading. But let's start with Leggers here. Leggers, you're first on the call. How are you going this week?
Oh, yeah, pretty good. I've just been doing the final touches on the website. So this weekend we will be launching. So check out the new Magical Learning website next week. And I also dyed my hair yesterday. So that's been my pivot in my look, so to speak. So yeah, that's been my week.
Amazing, Leggers. Good use of the pivoting there. So I hope people that have seen Friends referencing that moment where Ross is yelling "pivot." If you haven't seen that, I will link that in the description. But it's an iconic moment. Let's jump into Danette. Danette, how are you going this week?
Yeah, Jez, just come back from a week in Queenstown in New Zealand, where on the last day it snowed so much they had to de-ice the plane, but the rest of the weather was amazing. And this week I've been in Canberra, and if you can hear in my voice, I've got a little bit of the snuffles. But before that, we have to sing you happy birthday, because for those who don't know, Jez has a big milestone birthday this Sunday. So everybody, we ready?
This is going to be terrible.
Happy
birthday
to you.
Happy birthday.
Happy
To
birthday
you. The lag is terrible. Happy birthday, dear Jeremy. Happy birthday to you. I look forward to brutally editing that, everybody. So thank you. You've given me a lot more work.
That's the birthday gift from us to you,
And
Jess.
for those who are still listening, both of you, we apologise.
Well, I should highlight this is coming out next week, our time as of recording. So if you are listening to this, go check out the website. And I'm already old. Both of those things have already occurred. But yes, the website will be in the description. Go check that out. Graham, how are you going this
good,
week?
Jess. Thanks for asking. I have so many things to share. So I was invited to Queenstown to go with Danette last week by Danette. And did a weather check and thought, I was also invited at the same time to go and hang out with my kids in Bali. So, yeah, no snow in Bali. But I have a new appreciation for just how courageous somebody can be on a scooter, a motor scooter. I don't know if courageous is the right word, but I'm just going to go with that. My hair pivoted for me. It has dyed already. It is self-dyeing hair, as it turns out. It just continues to change at its own pace.
Well, it's very autumnal, Graham, you know, bringing its own sort of autumnal flavour
I'm
and
not going to
change.
repeat that word because you said it twice already, but I'm impressed, Jez. So yes, good point.
Amazing. Well, good to have you on as well, Graham. And John, how are you going? You got the beanie on today. Must be nice and warm. Just probably going to pop outside for a bit of sunbathing later.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm going to do, because Canberra's just beautiful this time of the year. Perfect beautiful one day, perfect the next. Is the old question. Autumnal. What the hell is autumnal? I've never heard of it. So, okay, I'm learning today. Otherwise, the rest of my week has been obviously very slow because I've missed out on what autumnal is for the rest of the week.
Well, I'm sure, John, you're actually very much experiencing autumnal. It's just autumn-ish, you know?
Right.
So, I'm sure that you're getting the brunt of it actually in Canberra. You're getting a very autumnal time.
Yes. Well, that's the one good thing about Canberra, though. We do have 4 seasons, and not all in one day like Melbourne.
Yeah, it's a common thing if you've worked in any customer service in Melbourne. At some point, the weather will get cloudy, and someone will walk in and go, "4 seasons in a day, mate," and just walk off, and you go, "Why did you tell me that?" No one was talking to you. But it is very much the thing. Well, I think that autumn is a season of pivoting. From warm to cold. And today I wanted to talk about pivoting in business. This was actually inspired by the business I'll bring up in question 2, and how bizarre its pivot was and continues to be, but remains still an amazing business. But I thought, let's jump into some of our own experiences in pivoting in business, just because, AI is coming out. There's a lot of people that, might have some elements that pivot, even if it's not the whole thing, sort of looking at the future, sort of making a business and turning it into something kind of, I guess, new, or redirecting it. So I guess, Legos, I'm going to start with you. Our first question today is, what's an example of a great pivot you've made in business or work? Now, I realize I shouldn't have just put great. I should have just put any pivot, because I think even bad pivots could be interesting. But Legos, what's an example of a pivot you've made in business or work?
So I don't have like a very extensive work history, compared to some of the other people on this podcast. So it might not be, I don't know, very, autumnal. I don't know. But basically, like, I studied a first degree and I didn't know what to do with it. And so I sort of like decided to sort of pivot my career more into the creative stuff that I enjoyed doing, like, as hobbies, such as like character design and stuff. And so I went back to university and just finished my degree, and I'm hoping to pitch a TV show out of that. So that's been my pivot, like a major career change pivot, which I'm sure some people also relate to, where you study something and you don't want to use that, or you don't know what to do with it. So yeah, it's basically just been completely left on a shelf, or more accurately, under my bed in a box. But yeah, I feel like it gave me some skills, but yeah, the whole genre wasn't my vibe. So yeah, that's my major pivot.
To kind of clarify it for people, so do you just want to explain what your 2 degrees were? So you want to do your first degree, and then what the actual second one was you pivoted to?
Yeah, so my first degree was a Bachelor of Arts in Politics and Russian, which sort of, for me, led to, like, I was thinking about working in ASIO or something like that originally, and then the more I studied, the more disenfranchised I became by what I was learning in my politics part of the degree. And I didn't particularly want to move to Russia, given Ukraine and all of that. So I abandoned that, and then a couple of years went by, and I went back and got a Bachelor of Design in Animation and Interactive Media. So it's much more creative. All of my assignments were basically drawing, which was challenging in its own way, because it was turning a hobby into like a serious thing. But it really forced me to sort of jump into it fully. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's a big pivot there, Legos. So great
Yep.
example.
Full 180.
That's it. Amazing. Well, thanks, Legos, for sharing that. Danette, I'll go to you now. What's an example of a great pivot you've made in business or work? Or I should just say a pivot. I need to get rid of that great bit.
So for me, it was when Graham and I created Magical Adventures. So previous to that, I'd been an employee. And so to go from being an employee to actually running a business was really good. And we then pivoted again to become a registered training organisation and created Magical Learning. And when we're no longer an RTO, we kept the Magical Learning. And now I also have an Adapt with Danette FM podcast, which comes with the danetefm.com website. So, and that's related to the writing that I've been enjoying doing. So lots of pivots. And I'd say for everyone, we have to pivot because the world keeps changing. So if we stay the same, we sort of become irrelevant pretty quickly. So I love that it keeps each day new and fresh.
And that's it's a great sort of thing. I guess my next question, just quick follow up for that one, is you've got there's a couple of different sort of moments there. Do you find that you've got more of a handle on pivoting things? I guess we can save this for question 3, but would you say yes or no to that?
Yeah, I think because you learn as you go along the way. It doesn't make you perfect, but it certainly gives you sort of know that it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to be learning lots of new things, and that's okay. So yeah,
Amazing. Well,
good
thank
place.
you. Thanks for that, Danette. Let's throw to Graham. Graham, what's an example of a pivot you've made in business or work?
So many. The one I might start with is actually a personal one. So I hope if you're listening or watching, folks, I hope you're seated with a cuppa. Put your feet up. We'll be here for a while. So when I was tender young age of 17 and a bit, this was just after electricity was invented. I had my heart set on being a motorcycle mechanic because I could ride a motorbike and I really liked riding motorbikes and they were awesome. And I thought, well, how hard can it be? So fortunately, the local motorcycle shop in the country town that I was living in at the time, who shall not be named, had a different perspective on my skills as a motorcycle mechanic, and so I pivoted and became a bank teller. Almost exactly the same. From a business perspective, probably the RTA thing I actually had written down. I saw the one that Danette shared. But I guess just another example of a slight pivot. It wasn't a massive sort of engineering or reinventing our business, but when that little blip called COVID appeared and hit the Australian shores, the first lockdown, within a week, every single one of the training courses that we had scheduled for the rest of the year was cancelled. So we'd gone from having a big book of work to nothing. So we pivoted and we spent a month recording a bunch of free webinars for anybody out there who might be interested on things that they could do to help manage the whole transition from going into the office to work to having to work at home, having to work at home with your partner also there, having to work at home with your partner also there, and your kids, and having to homeschool your kids and all that sort of stuff. But I think motorcycle mechanic to bank teller. Sorry, just one other thing if I can, because I can. Because I don't know, can you mute me? Would you? Probably. I had an idea for...
Thank you. And I will. No, I'm kidding.
I would. Just saying, I would pivot. And I just had an idea when Legas was sharing some of her experiences of combining the 2 degrees and pivoting into this... it'll be probably, I don't know, is it Netflix? Maybe Binge? So it's a new series a la sort of Wallace and Gromit. But it's animated characters who are sort of fictional, but sort of based on a couple of really strong personality world leaders recently, where one speaks sort of English and one speaks Russian, but you actually switch the languages around. And for those who have just left, you missed the punchline. I'm done, Jess. That's me.
Well, I am so shocked by that pivot at the end, Graham. I'm almost flabbergasted. But
it was a lot
amazing.
funnier in my head, and yes, it should have stayed there. I get that.
I thought it was leading to something that was going to be like policy and vomit, some sort of weird, brutally angled in name, but no. Let's pivot away from that ASAP and let's jump on to John. John, how are you? Let's jump into what's a great example of a pivot you've done?
I don't get the question out.
I can't. I'm bloody been rattled, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, John, how are you going? Let's just throw this in the bin now.
I'm just doing stuff. Yeah.
No, John. What's an example of a pivot you've made in business or work?
I think you've got a lot of editing to do. This is going to be hilarious to hear this one come out and just see what actually stays in and what goes out. Because after the subtle reminder that we're old from Legas, the rest of us are old compared to her. A lot of my career has been around pivoting, and changing things. I started out in I left school, went to the public service, and then went to do teaching, primary school teaching. And I did a year of teaching and then decided I didn't want to stay there so I worked in refuges, I've worked back in the public service, I've worked in community organisations, I've run a foster care program, I've worked for docs, and even what I'm doing now with the IT project management. I go onto a new project and I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing most of the time, and I guess a lot of it for me is just wanting to do different things, wanting to try stuff, wanting to learn and grow, and some of it's been chasing dollars as well, trying to get jobs that pay me more than what I was on. So, but I remember going to an Australian-wide community organisation, and it was about dollars that I chased. The job was interesting, but I had no idea. And I've done that a couple of times. So, yeah, I don't know. You just challenge yourself on it. But most of my career has been around pivoting, something different.
Well, that's amazing, John. We'll definitely we'll come back and retouch on these for question 3. But I guess I just want to kind of throw back a question that I threw at Danette, which is just kind of what's your mentality around pivoting now, given that you have done so much pivoting?
Even now I'm doing different things. So I do stuff in my 9 to 5. I do stuff with Magical Learning. I'm pivoting in terms of trying to get carbon analytics going overseas. Another mate's talked to me about doing helping people from overseas who have got to get a visa and getting them the skills that they need to do that. And it's like, I've got no idea what I'm doing there. So I think part of me is comfortable with my 9 to 5, and I don't want to leave that. But part of me is still, there's got to be something more out there. So, and I don't know what that is, and I don't know if I'll ever find it. But yeah, I'm up for the next challenge, whatever that is.
Amazing. Well, that's great. Thanks for that, John. I was just going to do quickly my pivot that I've done. That's kind of a weird, random, recent one, which was that I did writing for a community TV show, which was, I did that for free. It was called Live from St Kilda, won Best Arts Program at the Community TV Awards. So, but it was something that I just always wanted to try, being on a writing team and see what that was like. And this was the most chaotic version of that, where everyone was an amateur. So some people were submitting things that weren't even jokes. It was almost like the beginning of an idea. Like people would submit something to be said, which was just something along the lines of submarines or something, and you'd be like, okay, what joke? That's at the beginning of an idea, yeah, sure. But I think the fun of that was learning about kind of how, I guess, working with sort of exclusively creatives, how disorganized that can be. But in a sort of that has also some positives, where it's like sometimes you can get a lot of people rolling on one idea very quickly, and then that can kind of get solved. But then also sometimes it can be a little bit of a mess. But it was extremely fun, and then that got me into a different TV job later, which was fun. But yeah, that was a fun pivot for me. All right, well, John, let's start with you here. What is an example that you like to think about of another business that pivoted well?
Wow. Don't know, to be honest, Jess. Can't think of a business that has pivoted well. And I guess it's that balance of being about staying in your own lane if you've got a product that works, and not pivoting. I mean, I can think of, like, Kodak was one that failed terribly. Kodak was, a huge company that just didn't realise that digital was coming ahead, or was going to actually go far. Or BlackBerry's another one. That just missed the boat because they didn't see it. But as for companies that have pivoted well,
John, I'm sorry, John, just to jump in, I'm wondering whether, just as a bit of a prompt, if you can think of a business whose name sort of sounds a little like Tragical Yearning.
Oh, right. Yes, no, Magical Learning is one of those examples, Jess, that I think has done an outstanding job over the years and pivoted so well, especially during COVID. I would like to recommend them for the award, and I think the Academy should give it to them.
Amazing, John. Great inspiration there from Graham. um, Amazing. Well, thank you for that, John. And I think it's definitely worth throwing magical learning out there. Great pivot there. Let's go to Graham. Graham, did you have any examples of a business that you think has pivoted
In
well?
hindsight, I think we need to rename our company to make it easier to come up with words that rhyme. But anyway, so yeah, one that stood out for me simply because I like food, and I don't mind naming them. There's a restaurant in Canberra called Bistro, and it's been a favourite haunt of ours for a long time. We've gone there as a family. Danette and I've gone many times as a couple. They have a signature dish, well, for us it is, which is a beef Wellington that is just off the charts. So COVID, no restaurants, no sitting together, blah, blah, blah. And they weren't the only business that did this, but they were one that just stood out because they started putting together cook-at-home dishes. Now, this is a quality restaurant, not just a sort of a cafe, but they would literally they would put together a 3-course, I think, meal, which included the beef Wellington. So pastry already wrapped and ready to go. And Clement, who's the chef that runs Le Bistro, recorded a YouTube video with very detailed instructions on how to prepare and cook each of the dishes. So you could order online, you nominate a time to pick it up, you'd rock up, get delivered at the door, you'd take it home and cook it. It never tasted as good as it did in the restaurant, but still just a great example of a business that I'm assuming stopped to ask the question, well, we can't do this, and this is what we've done up until now. I had people in the door and cooked amazing food and all of that sort of stuff. So if we can't do that, what else can we do? And they're still going, and they better still be cooking the beef Wellington. I'll check.
Well, and we should confirm that, I think you mentioned this, but it's in Canberra, this restaurant, if people want to go check it out. Yeah, so we highly recommend it here at Magical Learning. It's got the official Magical Learning stamp of approval. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, no, I do recommend that to anybody if they want to go try that food. Absolutely. It's amazing. Danette, what's an example you like to think about of another business that's pivoted well?
So I've got 2, and they're right next door to each other, and they're local. So I wanted to promote them, both in Jugiong. First one is the Long Track Cafe, which has been there for quite some time. And Jet, the owner, is really good at coming up with new concepts to get people in the door. So they set up during summer a gelato place that you can go and eat at. They've set up another place that just sells their products, but they're always bringing new products and sharing great ideas and helping community. Second one is Gino's, which is the fruit and veggie store next door. And historically, you order your fruit and veggie on Monday. Gino goes up to the markets on Tuesday, and on Wednesday you pick up your fruit and veggie. Always beautiful and obviously fresh. And given we're about 4.5 hours southwest of Sydney, that's a pretty good service to provide the community. And recently they have added, so in this instance, I'd say the pivot is they've actually added what they deliver. So Jugiong has no supermarket. It has a service station, a motel, and then a pub and a couple of other things, but no actual store where you can buy things like bread and meat and stuff. So they've actually partnered with some other local businesses. So now you can also order bread and you can also order meat. And the other pivot they've done is that you can pick it up in Jugiong on Wednesday, but you can also pick it up, your delivery, in other towns around the thing. So people don't have to travel into Jugiong if that's a bit hard. So I've seen this in the last month or so. They're just adding some things to their business, and from what I see, they're doing a great job, and they do a great job. So Gino's Fruit and Veggies in Jugiong and also the Long Track Cafe in Jugiong, both worth a visit.
Yeah, and we love Jugiong. It's a favourite here at ML. If there was a whole town that could get the Magical Learning stamp of approval, I think Jugiong pretty much has to claim that one. So thanks for that, Danette. Legis, let's throw to you. What's an example you like to think of another business that's pivoted well?
So I actually learned about, I'd obviously heard of this company before, but I learned about it more during my animation degree. But Nintendo is a very interesting company, founded in 1889. They were a playing card company that made. I did a bit of a research on Wikipedia to refresh the dates, but they made Hanafuda playing cards, which are essentially like a matching card game. So they did that, and then in 1966 they pivoted to making toys, but they found that the market was very quick in Japan, and so you had to constantly produce things. So they pivoted again to the console, which we all know today. Like I'm sure everyone has heard of Nintendo in some form or another. But they didn't start with the 64. They started with, I think it was like color TV game or something like that. I'm sure it was very simple. But as like a gaming console company, which obviously they've stuck with, they have sort of continually pivoted to how best to deliver their media. So I think a lot of people now have seen like the Nintendo Switch, which I would say in the market for sort of portable gaming consoles is probably by far the leading one. And because PlayStation and Xbox and all of that, they have such a big market on like the TV paired with the gaming console. So I feel like Nintendo has done a really smart thing to sort of corner the market of like the portable one, because people use their phones all the time, and that's a portable thing. And then, although it is slightly bigger, I've seen Jazz has one, but he uses it on like trips and stuff, like on flights. I've seen him use it, so it's a good one for the gamer on the go. And the graphics are really good, and like the games are really fun. And obviously we've seen like spin-offs of Nintendo stuff being made into movies. So we've obviously got like the Mario movie, and we've had like Detective Pikachu. And although they don't exclusively own the rights of those, they obviously have their hand in the pot. So yeah, I think Nintendo's done a really great job to exist for like, I don't know, close to 150 years, having started as a card game company, to what it is today. I think is very impressive. So that's my
Amazing, Leggers. And I think you can see where the only pivot I've thought of theirs that didn't work is they did make a Mario Brothers movie in the 90s that people really hated. That was live action and kind of unrelated to what they did.
You
People
can't
didn't
win
like
them
it.
all,
You can't win them all. Yeah, exactly. That was a bit
Not
of
all pivots are good.
Did that
Exactly. It was a Nintendo don't.
nice one, Jez? Did that movie happen to have Paul Rudd in it?
No,
what
it
I
had.
thought.
I think. I don't think it had any really known names. Well, the company that I wanted to talk about actually that inspired this whole topic was also an old Japanese company from also the 1800s, but it's a company that you can never predict what they're going to do next, and somehow they excel at it, and it's Yamaha. Okay, like you think about Yamaha, they have some of the most bizarre combination of products you'd ever see: motorbikes, pianos, flutes, recorders, synths, CD players. They've got it all, and I just wanted to highlight them because I thought whenever they pivot, it doesn't seem to make any sense. So I looked into what is it that combines everything with Yamaha. Why do they keep doing these such random things? What's their why? Okay. And the answer is their sort of corporate mission is something called Kando, and it's the profound excitement and gratification derived from experiencing supreme quality and performance. English equivalents are emotionally touching or emotionally moving. So very exciting. So that's kind of their vibe.
Nice.
So
And sorry for those who are watching this, the whole obeisance thing that I did before, it was to the FJR 1300. And if you haven't experienced it, well, tough.
I think, Graham, the ultimate experience would be playing a Yamaha guitar on a Yamaha bike. I can see that's the ultimate Yamaha experience.
For 3 seconds, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the company that definitely inspired today's thing, I think.
Nice. I like that. I particularly love their just how they've used a vision that's really quite broad in a sense, but it gives them so much freedom to then think, oh well, okay, we make motorcycles and we have done for a long time, and they're fantastic motorcycles. Just ask Graham. But why don't we make a guitar? Because it's almost exactly the same, or a flute, or a in fact, I actually was trying to count the number of Yamaha scooters that I saw in when I was in Bali last week, but none of them was travelling slow enough for me to be able to see. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah. And also I forgot to mention that they the way that this basically their progression was they started with reed organs, then went to pianos, and then after the war they were like one of the only metallurgy factories still around, so they became the bike manufacturer of Japan, and then from there they're like, we're just going to keep making musical instruments and synths and everything. All right, well, let's jump into our final question here, and I'll start with you, Leggers. How can businesses think about pivoting better?
I like to think of pivoting as like a new chapter, you know? I feel like you can't always continue on with whatever you've been doing because change is inevitable. And, as the last couple of years have shown everyone in business, like it's very unpredictable and you can't just rely on the status quo. But I think a lot of people are very scared of change. And so it's good to sort of see it in like, maybe it's the glow up, like for example, with like Nintendo, if they had never pivoted to toys and pivoted to consoles, like we never would have heard of them. They would have just been a local Japanese card manufacturer. Whereas because they pivoted, they were successful and they continue to be successful. So yeah, you just have to be open to it. I think, yeah, it's always tough. You'll always have kinks to figure out, along the way, but um, nothing's going to be perfect the first time. But, it could lead to the big success. So yeah, that's what I think. New chapter.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Leggers. Great answer. Let's throw to Danette. Danette, how can businesses think about pivoting better?
So I will come back to the coaching questions we talk about a lot, which is what do we keep doing because it's working for us as a business? What do we stop doing because it's sort of maybe it's out of date, it's no longer serving us, it's no longer value adding. And what do we start doing? Which is exploring new areas that might be complementary or they might be very different, but we know that they're going to value add for our customers or our potential new customers. And totally agree with Leggers. It's going to be lumpy. It's going to be uncomfortable. And if we stay the same, we're going to be out of date pretty quickly. So build that whole pivot into your culture that we should be changing and we should be getting rid of stuff that no longer serves and bringing in new stuff that helps us move forward. Thanks,
Amazing.
Jez. Great question. Great topic.
No problem. Thank you, Danette. Great answer there. Graham, I'll go to you now. How can businesses think about pivoting better?
I had a couple of ideas, and one actually sort of resonates or is a great segue from your story about Yamaha, and that is just revisiting your why, your purpose for the organisation. If we're talking about a business or an organisation that needs to pivot, because that's often going to it'll be like the lens that you look through to consider what's possible in terms of pivoting. And the other thing is just get comfortable with failure. If you're not already, be more comfortable with risk, and be okay with failure, because if you're not, then you won't pivot. If we wait until we know for certain that something's going to work, then we generally don't do it, or we follow 5 other businesses that have already done it and they've got most of the market share and we never go anywhere. So yeah, be okay with risk and failure. I think is a good start.
Yeah, great example there, Graham. Thank you for that one. John, I'll go to you. How can businesses think about pivoting better?
I think, what Danette was saying, those 3 coaching questions, I think, become very important. And does it serve us now? So while it may have served us at a point in time, whatever it is we're doing, does it actually serve us now? And I think you've got to be when you own a business or run a business, there's a whole lot of emotional attachment to, doing what we've always done because we've always done it, and this is what we do, and this is what we're known for. But does it serve us now? And you've really got to take the emotion out of it and ask that question, and don't wait till the wave of whatever you're on crashes into the ground and the water's gone everywhere. While you're on that crest of the wave, start looking and working out, what do my customers need, or what does the community need, or what does, my group of friends need? What's that need there? And then am I in a place where I could actually do something about that? And what could that look like? And start exploring. So then going to Graham's thing about try different things. Yes, you're going to fail. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, but change is uncomfortable.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that, John. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think one way to sometimes make it a little less uncomfortable is sometimes you can always dip your toes in and just sort of get a feel of it. It doesn't have to be a full-blown commitment just because you feel like you need to pivot, I've been trying some new stuff with stand-up, but I'm fully willing to throw it in the bin if it doesn't work, Like, I'll just I'm dipping the toes in, seeing if it's working, but if it isn't, I'm like, well, that's okay. Well, this doesn't really affect too much, which, can be hard to tell because none of my stand-up works, but, well, no, just kidding. So anyway, let's, oh, actually, I wanted to talk just quickly on this last bit, and another thing to think about with pivoting. Sometimes if everybody is pivoting, that does create a little bit of a vacuum. That's the other thing that sometimes happens. This doesn't happen very often. It's a kind of an unusual circumstance, but I just wanted to highlight one thing that I noticed recently, which was I was watching this YouTube channel called Dry Creek Wrangler School, okay, which is weirdly by an old wrangler. He looks like some guy out of Red Dead Redemption 2. He lives in the Old West. His whole job has been horse mustering and rearing. And he has gone against the grain with YouTube because basically all he does is his YouTube channel is like teaching people, how to sort of look after a saddle and sort of different life lessons from living out on the land. But his whole non-pivot was that he still makes just 30-minute videos with him and a cigar in some old stable. And he just gives life lessons. And he always talks about how people have told him to make the videos shorter because it's more marketable. But he's like, I wouldn't want to do that, so I'm not going to do it. And he's created his own niche where it's these long, uncut videos, but they work because he didn't pivot. And he's just gone, look, if pivoting means, if I have to pivot, I'm just not going to do this anymore. So that is a rare example, but it's created, his videos now kind of act as a vacuum, in the vacuum of longer form videos for me. I can now go to those. But let's grab some final thoughts. So, John, I'm going to start with you. Any final thoughts on today's conversation and pivoting in business?
I guess it's, if you're thinking about it, try it. Where is that niche that you're wanting to go to, and have a crack at it. As you said, Jez, you don't have to go, in a lot of things, you don't have to go all in, but maybe you do, but take the risk. Yeah, have a risk.
Yeah. Love it. Thanks, John, and thanks. Great to see you again. Graham, throw to you. Any final thoughts on today's conversation and pivoting in business?
I like the example you shared at the end there about the Wrangler and the fact that going against the grain is in fact sometimes a more courageous pivot, and also going back to John's point about risk, that just recording 30-minute videos and not changing that helps you create a niche market that probably works a lot better than it might otherwise. Ultimately, I think it's, and this sort of goes back to something we learned from Robin Sharma years ago about the Titan's decline. It's just, if you're doing well, fantastic. But going back to John's point before about being on the crest of the wave, that's when you really need to start looking at, all right, what next?
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and it's been great to have you on again, Graham. Always a pleasure. Let's throw to Danette. Danette, any final thoughts on today's conversation and pivoting in business?
So I think part of our DNA in business needs to be that experimentation thing where this may or may not work, and that's okay. And I think leaning into that fear. So when Leggett said it was going to be lumpy and bumpy and stuff, that's true. And we just need to know that that's a natural part of progression in a business, and sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't. And I really love the question, what if? So creating some possibilities about what if we tried this thing and we just test it with our loyal customers and see what they think. And sometimes the loyal customers will love it and no one else will, and that's okay. You'll learn from that as well. So I really like that idea of let's experiment and just keep growing and knowing that that discomfort's just part of running a business.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Danette. And I think that that's a great sort of mentality to kind of keep in your mind. Actually, I wanted to just kind of like touch on one thing there just before we get to you, Leggers. One thing that I watched this week was I watched something on emotional first aid, but I realized that there's a really important part of it, which is to do with like your own internal voice. And if you're listening to this and kind of going like, oh, I can't pivot, it's too hard, or, you know, that's for other people, it's not for me. Which is just, you know, like everybody's going to have a negative self-voice sometimes. It's just part of being a person. But one quick tip you can do to kind of rearrange your brain and get yourself into a better headspace is to look at whatever part of that, whatever part of something that you're looking at that you're not doing well at. So for example, it might be like, oh, I'm not very good at innovating. You then just have to make a list of 5 things that prove that you are good at innovating. So you just make a quick list. That's the entire exercise. But just doing that, even if it takes ages, even if it takes 20 minutes and you're really carving it out, just doing that is going to just rewire your brain a little bit so that you can be in a positive headspace to rethink about these pivoting things. Leggers, I'm going to jump to you for the final thoughts on today's conversation and pivoting in business.
I think it's been a really good conversation. But yeah, I think overall you should embrace pivoting. And if, you know, your business is stagnant or you see your profit margin is becoming smaller, it may be time for a pivot, you know? See it maybe as something to keep an eye out for. And, you know, people like new stuff. People often embrace change. Sometimes they don't take it well. So maybe market test as well if you're doing big change. But yeah, I think always keep your, you know, heart open to it, and you know, your business will more likely succeed if it changes with the times as opposed to if it doesn't. So, but great conversation. Real fun.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I look forward to going back and meticulously editing the first half of this. But other than that, everybody, what a great conversation. I've had so much fun. I've really enjoyed learning what everybody has been saying. Graham, you want to jump in?
I did if I can. I just figured since the first effort was really bad, and just because I want to give you more editing work, I think we should sing Happy Birthday again, but we probably won't.
Well, Graham, thank you for that. I think I've got to use the word of the show, which is that's a very autumnal thing of you to do, which is because my birthday is in autumn. I want to thank everybody for today's conversation. It's been awesome. I've had a blast. And to everybody that's been sharing, listening, and enjoying it, I want to thank you all. And as always, have a magical week.